So thank you, everybody, for joining today. We're going to be about 1 hour presenting a couple of different aspects of e-commerce and ERP to the audience here. So presenting today is going to be three of us. As I said, my name is Jim Ritterbusch. I'm a general manager here at NexTec Group, running some of the Northeast offices. Also presenting with me is Matt Bertulli, who's a co-founder and CEO of Demac Media, business partner with NexTec. And my colleague Jason Levis, who's a senior application consultant, is going to show a little bit of ERP software today as we go through the course of the presentation. So this presentation came about as Demac and NexTec started doing some work together. NexTec Group being a software, enterprise resource software systems, often is asked by companies, can you sell us the e-commerce module, and I assume that plugs right into your ERP. Or conversely, Demac might be asked, do you have an accounting package with the web store you're going to be setting up for us? So as those questions came about, the answer is in all cases no. There's really no web store module that comes out of the box with most ERP packages, at least the mid-market ERPs. So it's a scenario where customers can find their web store and find their ERP and then integrate the two of those. So that's the work that Demac and NexTec have been doing together recently and having some success. So we thought we would have a session today to talk about that and kind of illuminate that it's not a matter of just a simple plug and play, put a connector in there, and orders and customers will pass through from a web store to the accounts receivable module. And deplete inventory is a little bit of a project, so we wanted to talk about some of those things. So kind of what's involved in an ERP selection process, what ERPs are out there that works with, what's involved with looking for a web store, and then how do you integrate those two, and what happens as that process gets underway. So that's kind of the agenda today, and I guess I'll take us through here a little bit of who NexTec Group is. So as mentioned, we're a consultancy that sells software systems, essentially. So we help companies become more efficient through the use of software systems. So a typical client of ours is somebody who might be using QuickBooks and saying, I've outgrown QuickBooks. I now have some international operations, or I now have a warehouse that I want to have some barcoding going in, or I have a manufacturing process that I want to start tracking in my software system, and one of these lower-end systems like a QuickBooks or a Peachtree is not really working for me. We might also see somebody who's maybe being spun off from a larger company that was using a more robust ERP, but now as a smaller division needs something that's a little more mid-market. Or we see people who are using legacy systems or something that was custom coded or homegrown that support's no longer there, and they want to get themselves onto more of a mainstream solution. So that's where we come in. We help companies make decisions about ERP, and then we help you through the entire implementation process, and then hopefully are your partner going forward as you grow as a business. So we also sell CRM solutions, so customer relationship management to track your marketing and Salesforce automation efforts. We're a national firm with offices throughout the U.S. and Canada, and all our folks are deeply immersed in this world. So they come with backgrounds as operational officers or information officers or controllers, somebody who might be running a warehouse or manufacturing process type of thing. So we have over 600 customers, been in business for close to 20 years, and been doing this for a long time. So this is just a little bit of a mix of who our clients are, so I'll let that publish here. But clients across a whole variety of industries, and that's because we work with 4 different or 5 different ERP packages, so each package might be suited for a specific industry or not suited for an industry. So for that reason, we can kind of service all industries, and it's a good thing generally for somebody speaking to us, because fit one square peg into every hole. We have a number of tools that we can talk to you about and hopefully find the right fit for you. Okay. So I know we have a mix of folks here, some that already are clients of NexTec, some that are already an ERP and just need a commerce store and want to hear about that. But I thought I would just share, sort of the key benefits of an ERP. If anybody here is, thinking, what can an ERP system do for me, or I have something in place today that seems adequate. What could I really get from an upper mid-market ERP system? So really it's the main thing you're looking for is visibility to data and all the data shared under one umbrella or one place to kind of look up all your information. So typically obviously the lifeblood of the business is sales, so you want to make sure you're having profitable sales. Ideally, you can enter your quotes into your ERP system, and those quotes easily transition to orders. Your customer service and sales people can have a license to the ERP application and do revisions and see what the order history was for somebody, make suggestions on cross-sell or upsell, see what's on back order. So tracking all those things that a sales rep or a customer service rep might do. Obviously, as I mentioned before, as you get into a warehouse scenario, distribution or manufacturing, your business becomes infinitely more complicated, and you have a lot more things to track. You may want to get into barcoding and efficient picking processes. You start looking around for the best rate for shipping, so you do some rate shopping. You want to start putting things in bins and have barcode automation throughout. And as you get into your manufacturing processes, depending if you're a assembly discrete shop or more of a process, if you're in food or pharma and you have formulations and recipes, you want to track all those things. Again, really to see if you're doing things efficiently, if you're profitable in what you do, or there are ways that you can make some improvements to help the business run better, and start measuring those things and allow your people to spend their time helping you grow the business as opposed to searching for data or keying in data or trying to integrate data from multiple systems. And the last point, reporting. So as companies grow and are on one of the smaller platforms that I mentioned, typically there'll be some multi-company and multi-currency or foreign legislation issues that need to be addressed, and you need a robust ERP to handle all that. So those are the reasons, key benefits from an ERP. So NexTec Group works with 5 different ERPs, and just wanted to give a little flavor of what each one kind of does in case anybody out there in the audience is considering ERP these days. Sort of the landscape, as I mentioned, on the low end, you might see like a QuickBooks or a Peachtree, and the high end might be an SAP or an Oracle. But beyond those, for the most part, the middle market is pretty crowded and a lot of options out there. So NexTec really tries to have a nice offering spread across, and most of these we would define as upper mid-market products. So from Microsoft, we work with 3 of them, AX being the most robust or functional. A company typically is going to need to have 20+ users in a warehouse, and usually multinational distribution to really get the value out of AX. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars when you're all said and done here with implementation and software. So that's the one that probably competes most regularly with something like an SAP. So right down from that would be X3 from Sage. So Sage has various ERP solutions and has rebranded a bit of late, but this is the highest end marquee product from Sage. So this is also upper mid-market, manufacturing, so process manufacturing and discrete manufacturing are strengths for X3. So this product is not going to be as expensive as AX. They're often competing in the same circumstances, but X3 is targeted for a price point that should be slightly better than or less expensive than AX. When you get to GP is the longest, I guess, the product from Microsoft that's the most prevalent in North America or English-speaking parts of the world. I think there's over 50,000 companies now using that. So this is a mid-market ERP that's very strong in financials, has some distribution, and often if you need to get into process manufacturing or some other areas, barcoding, you have some third parties. So you can add third parties and make it work, but if you're starting from scratch, you might want to consider something that has all those things already built in from the publisher. SL is a product that we have a lot of success with, but it's really a niche product, so service-oriented company. So if you're working on projects, time material, or timesheets and expenses to specific projects and tracking all that, that's where you would look at SL. And Sage 500, formerly known as Mass 500, is pretty on par with Microsoft GP from a distribution, some manufacturing, strong financials. The attention at Sage is probably more towards X3 these days, as they've made some announcements about 500 and the sort of the future of that over the coming years. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Matt, who's going to introduce his firm, and then when that wraps, we're going to hand it over to Jason for some presentation of the X3 product from Sage.
Thanks, Jim.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'll keep this really quick, guys. Like, Demac Media is what we call a full-service e-commerce design and development company. So we basically design, build, and implement, and then maintain e-commerce platforms for merchants. We're about as loyal as you can possibly. And with that said, we really only work with Magento Enterprise. That's sort of our bread and butter. We're a gold solutions partner with Magento. It's an eBay company. I'll tell you a little bit more about them. But what that means is that I think we're one of the top solution partners in the world. And ultimately, all it comes down to is that we just really, really like what we do. We're just designers and developers. We love to build things. I want to show off some of our customers. We're a bit all over the map as well, and it's not that we work in different industries. The most common thing that I can point to is that we work with merchants or manufacturers that sell physical product. So all of these guys, whether it's their clothing and apparel and fashion, or they're selling shaving supplies or coffee or HVAC filters, like anything physical, Magento tends to be a really great platform to facilitate that. Next slide, Jim. So I think part of this conversation, the webinar that we're hosting today, is we're talking about e-commerce and ERP integration, and I think it starts with, like, it's great that you're going to go ERP, and it's great that you want to have an e-com platform, and I think that both of those are what I consider hub solutions. So like all the other software that you're going to buy and use in your business is usually built around these two things. I think that if you screw up your e-commerce platform or your ERP system, that's possibly the biggest screw up you can have. So you really want to make sure that you take the time and conduct due diligence and make sure I'm saying this, like, I've been in e-commerce for north of 13 years now. And I spent some time working for a company that was an ERP company, and I definitely saw a good mix of both e-com platform and ERP implementations over the last decade and a bit. So I do, I've got some perspective in seeing it go really, really well and the effects, and seeing it go really, really wrong, and what happens then. Next slide, Jim. So, I really touched on Magento quickly. I think that there's a couple key points that I like to point out when we're talking Magento. Other than the fact that it's owned by one of the largest e-commerce companies in the world, that being eBay and PayPal, we like it because it's open source. It has a massive community. That's probably my #1 reason for liking Magento. Being a software engineer and really supporting the open source community, it's nice to have a platform that really embraces that. From a business standpoint, it's huge. The largest platform. It has the biggest market out there. I think it's around 25% of the global e-commerce market runs on Magento. Well north of 100,000 merchants, and I think 6,000 enterprise merchants. So it's got a hefty customer base, and that means there's lots of stuff always happening around the platform. Makes it really easy to integrate with, which is kind of what we're here to talk about. Next slide. There we go. So I think I always call it the first kilometer, the first mile of e-commerce. You're gonna have to excuse the kilometer reference for the Americans on the phone. It's all about, like, when is the right time to be doing these things. So I think choosing your platform and choosing your ERP platform and choosing your e-commerce platform, those are kind of like steps 1 and 2, right? In this business. Then it's a matter of, okay, like, when is the right time to be adding on other systems and integrating those? And the answer is always dependent on the kind of business you're in. There's lots of trigger points, but ultimately I think that the thing that I really like to stress is the timing of these decisions. It's not necessarily the decisions themselves, right? You're going to end up with all of these different software systems. It's when you choose to end up with them and which ones you choose. Next slide. So I've kind of got, like, some big flags that I look for when I'm talking to one of our merchants. When we want to start looking at automation, and in today's context, we're talking about ERP to e-commerce platform tight integration, right? So automating, order processing, multiple channel selling, return requests, shipments, invoicing, all that good stuff. These top 5 things, I look at order volume in kind of like that 0 to 20, 20 to 100, and 100 to 1,000 and up range. And at each one of these points, I think you're going to notice like different pain in the business. Again, in the product you sell, right? Like if you sell, AA batteries, shipping out 100 AA batteries a day really isn't that hard. Whereas if you sell a car seat, shipping out 100 car seats a day, quite a bit more labor involved. So I think it depends on the product, but every business has thresholds that when it comes to order volume, whether you're doing things manually or you can automate some of the data processing, that could have a huge impact on your business. It's important to know, like when you look at these 5 things, I think a lot of this has to do with more back end and bottom line stuff. Not necessarily, going to drive top line sales, but definitely support that increase in growth. Like when you start selling in multiple channels, like you're selling on your e-com platform, your own site, versus selling on Amazon or eBay or any other marketplace, that's a very complicated model to start running, and you're going to want to automate things if the volumes from these channels go up. You definitely don't want to be entering in data manually or exporting and importing spreadsheets on your own for very long, right? There's limits. I think return requests, frequent price, new product launches, like if you're the kind of business that's launching like 100 new SKUs a week or 500 new SKUs a week, that's a lot of product to merchandise. You can have people working on that stuff, but should they be entering it into one system, into an ERP system, and having that populate up to the web, or should it just live on the web? Like these are all decisions that you need to make. But I think that you look at the volumes of each of these buckets, and you can start to see that your business is going to break, or your processes are going to break, more important, within each of these buckets. Next slide. So really quickly, like the benefits of systems integration, and this is a tough one because it is a little different for each of our merchants. Most of it comes down to automating manual process, right? So when customers place orders on your website, you want those to go through your pick, pack, ship, fulfill process, right? You don't want, somebody from your team having to take an order and manually enter it into whatever fulfillment system you're using. And some of you on the phone, this sounds like easy peasy, duh stuff. But really, you'd be amazed at how many companies we see where there's somebody who's taking an order from a website, putting it into an ERP system or an accounting system, and then also putting it into a shipping carrier system so they can generate their shipping labels. All of that stuff can actually be integrated and automated. I think the human error thing is kind of an obvious one when you start to look at it. Like how many mistakes are you making? And this goes across the board. I'm always I've got one of our customers pays attention to how many errors they have in their warehouse, and picking errors or packing errors, and each one of those errors actually has a dollar amount associated with it, right? So when you're talking about integrating two systems, the idea is not just improving how quickly you can do things, but it's reducing the number of errors that would otherwise be made by human beings, because we're all, we're infallible. Well, we make mistakes. In reporting, I leave this to last, and I put a little star beside it, because I find, when you've got a fast-growing e-commerce business, any business actually. I mean, I went through this with our business for the first little while, that you're so heads down in the business executing on a day-to-day basis that it's difficult to lift your head up and start looking at reporting. But ultimately, like the accuracy of that data and how quick you can get that data can have pretty big impact on your growth. We've merchants of ours where they don't get accurate sales data until the end of the month when things are reconciled between their payment gateway, their accounting system, and their e-commerce platform. And I think that's just ludicrous. Like 1 month to get how you did that month, like you should be seeing that every day. Like in any hour, you should be able to pull up a report and kind of see a pretty up-to-date shot of like what are sales like across all of your different marketing campaigns and channels. Valuable information, because that means you can funnel resources and spend into the right direction. And that is a big benefit of integration, and I think is often overlooked. Next slide. this is an important one. The idea of plug and play integration. So you buy a piece of software off the shelf, and it magically connects, Magento to Sage X3. You can totally do that. There's definitely software out there that have like pre-canned integrations. I always like to, the way that we approach integration is, about 80% of it's the same business to business. There's always this 20%, roughly, that is unique from merchant to merchant. And some of it depends on, what kind of data you're moving back and forth. A lot of it depends on the kind of product you sell and the process around fulfilling that product. A good example would be, fulfilling a physical product or fulfilling liquid products or fulfilling digital products. Each of those types of products has different back-end processes for fulfillment. So off-the-shelf integration, some of them may be built just for, digital. Some of them might be built for really simple physical, like, real product fulfillment. I think there should be some key questions that you need to ask. You should be looking at, like, do you actually need all of your data from your e-com platform in your ERP system? Or do you just need, orders, items per order, and customer information? Like, do you need to send down all the extraneous stuff that might come with an e-commerce order, like sales channel acquisition? Did that order come from AdWords versus, or organic versus some other channel? More important, when you're looking at integrating e-commerce systems to ERP systems is choosing which piece of software owns which piece of data. And this is actually a really tough one to kind of get your head around. I mean, I'm an engineer and I still struggle with this sometimes because I think that, there should just be a two-way sync between my ERP system and my e-com system for my customers, right? Like if a customer updates something on their own on the website, that should just automatically be in the ERP system. And vice versa, if they call in and they update service reps, that should just be on their profile on the e-com platform. Lots of challenges around two-way data integration. More often than not, unless you're a really large business and you can justify the time and headache and expense of doing two-way data integration, most merchants that we see, they choose the master. Master is the ERP system, for example. And products, the master is the e-com platform. Inventory, the master is ERP. So is pricing in the ERP system. So, and I think that those are good examples to see, like, each system should have own a piece of data and be responsible for that piece of data. And then I think, the process handoff. So a big one is, where are you going to be doing your order fulfillment? That's a common, have an ERP system and an e-com platform. They need to look at that. When an order is placed on the website, where is your warehouse staff? What are they working out of? Are they working out of Magento to pick, pack, and ship and generate the shipping label and getting the tracking number? Is that out of Magento, or is, when an order comes in from Magento, does it automatically get sent down to the ERP system, which is probably in your warehouse because that's usually where they're receiving inventory into, and that's where they go through the pick, pack, and ship, right? And then ultimately the tracking number that the ERP system gets should flow back up to the e-commerce system. So there's a fulfillment process, and what you should be doing is every step in that fulfillment process, you should note which system is handling that piece of the process. Point, should data be communicated back to their systems to notify customers or to notify yourself, your own staff. Okay, next slide. I think I wanted to provide some examples of integration challenges that we've seen over the years. We do I think a big one that crops up and it always seems to be more complicated than it sounds is gift registry. If you're in baby or wedding or anything that has to do with a registry of some kind, registries they're simple in how they sound, right? Customers add products to the registry and then their friends buy them off that registry. But there's so much more to it than that. There's notifications. You got to make sure that people don't buy. Two friends don't buy the same thing. If you have physical retail locations and that registry needs to be integrated, online, offline, it's a can of worms, and I like to point out that if you have a registry business, this is something to really watch for. If you're going to try and integrate it, be very, very detailed with the processes and where things get handed off. I think back orders and special orders are another one of these ones that could be scary if not handled and thought out really well. A lot of e-com companies don't take back orders because they add an overhead to their business that they may not be ready for. Some industries you have to take back orders because that's the nature of the beast. Same with special orders, right? Like furniture is a really good example of like everything in furniture is special order, unless you're talking case goods. If you're running multiple warehouses, sometimes there's logic that you need to choose which warehouse to send an order to. The most popular being that if an order comes in from the West Coast of the United States, I should be fulfilling out of my California warehouse, versus the East Coast, I should be fulfilling out of my New York warehouse, like using examples. Drop shipping is kind of in that bucket too. If you use any kind of drop ship service, if you have multiple drop shippers for the same SKU, right? So I can buy this Canon digital camera, and I buy it as a retailer. I buy it from 3 different drop ship wholesalers, and they ship it for me. And at the point of order, I want to buy from the one that's going to have the cheapest shipping cost and the cheapest cost of the product for that customer. Kind of logic, right, is easy to think about. The human brain is very capable of handling that. Like we can all talk about that, night and day. But where does that live in the software? We have to tell these, like the e-com platform or the ERP system how to route all of this stuff. There's decision trees and business logic. Stupid. So you have to be very specific in how this stuff works. Same goes with returns, right? That's another, like we've seen so many times. Where does an RMA get initiated? Can they do it on the website? Once the RMA is approved, does that go into the ERP system, or do returns just get handled in the e-com platform? So all I'm trying to do here is just, these are things that where we get a little hung up because we think they're easy. We think that they should just work, but then whenever we dig into it, it's always different business to business. Okay, next slide. The last thing I kind of wanted to show off here was and I think it's nice to see this. When orders come in from a site, and you're talking about integrating them into the ERP system, it's not magic, right? There's always a format or something, and what I wanted to show was just like really quickly, this is what a typical order export might look like, right? And it's different per ERP system. This one I think is for one of the Sage products, but it's got an order number, a customer number, it's got multiple line items. You can see the price that it was purchased for. Is it taxable? Like all this stuff that we take for granted. We just think, okay, it's an order. Right? All that data around that order, it can be exported and it can be imported. I think just always think about, like, once you see it in this format, like in a nice, easy to digest format, it's a lot easier to start thinking, like, should I even be sending this stuff down, right? Or should it just stay in the e-com platform because I'm never going to use it anyway, right? I think that's it from my end. Jim, do you want to pass it over to Jason?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, Matt. And I would just add on this last slide here, we're not even really doing this file justice here. This was 20 plus 30 or so columns here, so we only showed a few of them. But yeah, as Matt said, you want to think about what needs to go over and how you're getting that over. All right, so I'm going to Jason Levis from NexTec, who's going to show a little bit of the X3 solution from Sage. So you should see Jason's screen now, and he'll take you through this for a few minutes.
Hello, everyone. So what I'm going to do first is just review a little bit of the look and feel of X3, and then as that, and then at how it relates to coming in and more on the order and customer screens that we would review. So what we're looking at first here is a typical kind of entry screen that has both dashboards and requesters for you to see statistical information. So this is something that I would see as both a management tool and for somebody that's actually performing certain functions. In this case, what you see here are some statistical graphs, such as sales by territory or sales rep order analysis. So these types of graphs are out-of-the-box functionality that can be altered for specific needs, but it's a good reporting tool, kind of can replace certain paper or man-made reports that someone runs periodically. This can just be refreshed throughout the day for people to do analysis. For instance, here, sales by territory, these are the territories on the right. I can then click and drill down into each customer within there, right? So this is just an easy thing for me to go, okay, I looked at one territory and here are my customers over a given period of time. You have options to do this by amount, to do this by quantity, so there's a lot of options from a reporting tool standpoint. I can also change the style of graph and how I want to see it, as you can see here, or below. One thing that we can also do here is very easy to take a page like this and kind of design it yourself. I can move from, one to the other. I can go from side to side if I wanted to. It's a very customizable, modifiable screen. Also, up top, you'll notice I have little tabs. I am able to set up multiple screens with different graphical interactive screens, as well as the straight out-of-the-box menu to get to more functions within the software. And briefly, just there's an add content section here where I'm able to kind of hand choose one of over 150 reports and inquiries and process flows that come out of the box and can be either altered or built from scratch. So that's just an idea. So when you're looking at screens like this, aside from the reporting functionality, there's also some function here. Like if you see here, we have orders to ship or open sales orders, and there are hot links within here that I can click on and drill down into actual information. So for instance, here this is, so 7shop is what was briefly shown on that integrated spreadsheet. So we're going to kind of look at it as to what that information will look like as we see it in the system. And if I was somebody that was looking at open sales orders and I saw this list and I wanted to check on one in particular, if I click, it's going to allow me to go in it. What we see here is just briefly, the system gives you options for multiple types of screens depending on what you're doing in a particular order. So in this case, I'm just going to go into a standard sales order screen, and this is the header information that we see in this case. Somewhat typical sales order screen. You see X3 to have different bill to customers than the customer you're shipping to. If you have national accounts or kind of parent-child relationships among your businesses, your customers. You also have the ability to handle multiple addresses, and we'll look at that a little bit in the customer screen. Tax rules. There's multi-currency functionality as well, if that's relevant to your business. You see at a brief glance whether or not something has been, is it open, is it shipped, have the goods been allocated. There's a lot of strong functionality within X3 on being able to control allocations of how you want to allocate your inventory so you don't ship goods to the wrong sales orders if you were preferring to ship that, preferring to prioritize differently than just first come, first served. Credit hold, credit status functionality as well. It just shows you a little snapshot here as well as in some other places. I'm going to back out of here for a second before we dive a little deeper into this and come back to this sales screen again. What I'm also going to scroll down to show you is aside from these requesters, inquiry screens, and graphs, we also have something that we call process flows. And what these little maps do is they allow you to kind of minimize the functions that a user may see. So instead of dealing with long menus, this can kind of help with both a training tool. It can help kind of create process flows both for your business so you can document the actual flow of your own work, and as a training tool for new employees or people in new roles. So in this case, this is a very basic one, and we'll see a little more complicated one in a few minutes. But here you see one where for processing orders, where someone can search through price lists. We have customer pricing that we can set up in, for both individual customers, groups, what have you. Date controlled, price breaks. If I go into my create order screen, which we were just looking at again, I'm going to, and what you see here is that order screen again, but on the left you see other sales orders within the system. You get quick views of the statuses, shipped, not shipped, things like that that we can modify on how those things are shown. I'm going to click here where it says last read, so I see the last orders I've been working on. And so here's the one we're looking at, and here's another one for 7Shop that's in a little bit of a different status. So for this particular order, here's one that's if I look here again, I see that this is closed. So the reason I wanted to show you this one is we're going to get into the way we can track the life of that sales order after it happens. If I use a delivery tab here, what you can see is we can control, if you have multiple warehouses, which site you're going to be shipping out of. And we can attach those shipping sites to the particular address of a particular customer. We also have, so we're able to set rules on partial delivery. Are we back ordering? Are we shipping the whole thing? And certain rules on whether we're allocating specifically or globally upon entering orders. In the Lines tab, here we have a typical sales order line. So this is for that item, and this is the ship site it's going to, the quantity. You see pricing, and not too much else on here. What we're able to do is kind of streamline the information you put on a sales order entry line. But if I right-click and I go to something called form mode, when I click on this, it actually opens up much more complicated you may want to hold but not necessarily need to see in sales order entry, such as any sort of commissions or royalties or tax information that may be important that you may need to report on but that you don't need the user to see all the time. So these are, this screens are very modifiable, and you're able to move around to show and hide and activate many of these items and report or use them throughout your process. I'm also able to, in this option up top, there's something called options, and in this status, I can take a screen like this and see where things have happened. It shows me there's a delivery document and that there's an invoice for this particular order. If I right-click, I have drill-down capabilities into that particular invoice. So if somebody was on the phone with a customer who had questions, you could go from your order into your invoice. It's a very similar type screen, and you can look into that invoice for that customer. And further, if you're more in the financial end of things, you can also drill down from an invoice with security that can prevent the right people or the wrong people from getting into this type of information, all the way drilling down into your actual journal entry from that particular invoice. So the system is very good at flowing from the order to the invoice to the journal entry to the stock movement. It's all integrated and flows searching. So if you're trying to research what happened on any particular order. What I can also do from here is drill down into a customer screen. So when I drill down here is a customer screen that has some functionality where we're able to do multiple addresses. So if you are going to do something from an e-commerce website, do we want to have customers created from that web? Do we want a new address created when a customer sends in a new ship to? All those things can be done, based on the way the integration is set up. We're able to set, whether or not we're going to do commissions or credit limits. We have the ability to set all that up within here. If I go to my Ship to Customer tab, what this allows me to do is some addresses may not be shippable and some will. So when I do a Ship to address, I can default here what warehouse we're going to ship from if we ship from multiple warehouses. What are the tax rules? Are there specific sales reps? There's a lot of detail that we can add at the Ship to Customer level. It's very strong functionality within X3. We also have multiple contact management here on a tab like this, where I can set up different where I can set up different contacts with contact information and attach them to a particular ship-to address. So if you're shipping to multiple locations and you need to attach different buyers or managers from your customers, you can do that here. What we're also able to do, information, is if I'm in a sales order, say I'm in this sales, so I'm switching to a sales order that hasn't been shipped yet. I also have the functionality here that if I want to print an acknowledgement, so if I want to send a sales acknowledgement, what I'm able to do is email. So you see here I got an email. We have something called workflows. It's now going to send an email to my customer saying, here's the order acknowledgement. So if that's not happening within your e-commerce system, it can happen within the ERP system that we're sending order acknowledgments. This can also be for invoicing or shipping or any other notifications you may want to send either internally. Okay. So that's just a few pieces of information on some of the sales order functionality, as well as some of the functionality within the customer screen. One thing I also wanted to touch on in these process flows, is I also have the ability to go into some inquiry screens. So a typical inquiry screen within X3, if I click on order lines for this example, this is going to show me all sales order lines that are currently in the system. I have the ability up here that I can filter based on customer number or product or what have you, dates, the statuses of the orders, things like that. In this case, I'm just picking that customer we used, and these are 3 sales order lines within the system. This is a typical inquiry screen that you can scroll, and these we can add and remove columns depending on what you want to look at. You also have the ability here to drill down into the particular order from here, or I can go to an Excel export, and what this allows me to do is take any inquiry like this and very quickly get it into Excel for either your own personal review or to send to management. It's basically a quick little report writer where there are filters already built in. You can change the color schemes and alter the box. This type exists from these standard inquiries. Okay, so aside from that, so that's just kind of a narrow view on just the customer and the sales kind of functionality and how it flows. I also want to show you, so in this admin tab, so here's another tab with a process flow for setting up sites, which X3 can handle multiple companies, multiple financial sites. If you need to do P&Ls by location, X3 can be set up in that way. If we focus on this data imports, which is something we're talking about from integration with your e-commerce, if I just click on this for a second, this is more of a technical side of things, but if you notice here, I have a template for sales orders, I have a template for customers, and these templates can be altered and changed to make sure we have the right information. If you have even multiple formats can be used depending on what you need, if customers have different needs or different websites or EDI or what have you. So this is just the idea of the front-end ability to change data importing layouts. In my manufacturing tab, and we're not really getting into that, but here's an idea of a process flow that's way more encompassing of the functionality within X3. It goes from CRM, which it has a built-in CRM functionality, so you can track leads and campaigns and quotes into sales orders. You have the ability to enter in sales forecasting and run purchasing and MRP and demand off of that. You have the ability to do manufacturing with bill of materials management, processing work orders. There's a lot of radio frequency and for warehouse functions. If I click on here, this will pull me into a product screen. Within a product screen, which is we were looking at this particular product, you have the ability to set up all sorts of statistical groups for reporting purposes, if you want to classify your items, you can set up whether or not you're going to do lot management, or if you're going to do, if you have expiration dates. All of these things are set up within here as well. You can set up specific customers with their own product numbers, as well as suppliers. You can set up specific suppliers. You can set up pricing. You can set up whether or not you want to do quality control within your items. So there's a lot of strong functionality within the product screen as well. And also scroll. We have other process flows as well, where we can get into things such as processing purchase orders, doing receiving, once again with RF functionality and quality control, and also very powerful on the accounting side. Setting up your fiscal years, we can do multiple legislations, multiple general ledgers, recurring invoices, and a lot of strong functionality in reporting, financial reporter as well. So that's just in general kind of the look and feel of the system. Very, very good with being able to set up process flows as well as integrate between sales and accounting and inventory, as well as import-export functionality within to connect to your e-commerce. So I think that that wraps me up.
Okay, very good. If you want to make me the presenter again, that would be good. Okay. Okay, so I think that concludes our presentation here. Just wanted to give everyone some food for thought. I think you got a mix here in the audience insofar as where people are as far as thinking about these things. We want to, again, illuminate that that there's for ERP or shopping for e-commerce, or have one of them in place and need the other, or need the whole bowl of wax and want it all fully integrated. There's a lot that goes on, and a lot of things to consider. So, as I said, our firms are having some success working together in partnership on these things, and we wanted to have a session like we did today to get some of this information out there and have folks absorb this and maybe start making some plans to look at things more closely. So certainly, if anybody wants to dig into this with either one of us, we're going to share contact information here momentarily. But we're excited and happy to do so, and appreciative of everybody taking the time to spend an hour or so with us today. Matt, do you have any comments in closing?
No, I just thank everybody for coming out, and it's been fun.
All right, fantastic. So here is contact information for both Demac and NexTec. Again, we thank you for your time. We hope to hear from some of you. If anybody has any pointed questions, specific questions, we're happy to take on any and all questions through these channels here, phone call or email. So I guess we'll wrap up here, and again, thank you all, and have a good afternoon.